All right. You want to do this one? The
Let's
last
do it.
one? Nebraska hosting Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes. NBC 7:30 nighttime game. My favorite color analyst, Todd Blackledge, is on the
Love Todd
call.
Blackledge. Yep.
So good. Nebraska's a 7.5-point favorite. First question out of the gate. Does that line surprise you?
No, why would it surprise me? Like it should be bigger or smaller?
Smaller, or even like that Colorado might be favored.
Not really. I think some of the shine has worn off of the Colorado situation. I mean, when we played them in game 2 last year, they had just beat TCU, who, coming off a college playoff appearance. I don't know anybody realized that they were going to be much worse last year. So they just beat TCU, and all the, that when they beat at the end of our game, when it was clear they were going to win, Gus Johnson said this is the biggest story in all of sports. And so this the Coach Prime hype train was off the rails last year. I think some of that shine has worn off.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's interesting, this is just so first of all, like Husker fans, like we Nebraska owns, I should have looked it up. We own the historical series against Colorado.
Yeah.
I mean, we beat them all the time when we would play them every year. But they beat us twice. We played them in 2018 and 2019 in the Frost era. We talk about this on our show. There's games you could have won and games you should have won. We absolutely should have won both of those games, and just we killed ourselves in both of those games. And then last year was just, it was such a mess. It was a turnover. And it was like 13-7 in the third quarter or something. And so it was still a game, but we just could not do anything on offense. Our offense was so bad all of last year. We kept turning the ball over. And so they ended up winning, what was it, 36-14 or something. But it's hard, in my opinion, it's hard to take a lot from last year. But then we went on and maybe, did a little more than people expected. I think Colorado went on and lost a bunch of games, and so I don't know. There's definitely a lot of hype and optimism around Matt Rule's program in year 2 for Nebraska. I love the matchup. I think it favors Nebraska. I think I think it's going to be like a top 5 atmosphere at Memorial Stadium. I will not be able to be there, unfortunately, but I think it's just going to be electric at Memorial Stadium, and those fans are going to be out for blood. I just think if you're a Husker fan in recent years, we've been snake bitten so many times, and it's been so painful. It's just hard not to have PTSD. And here we've got Dylan Raiola, this great true freshman quarterback who looked awesome in week 1, Big Ten freshman of the week in week 1. People were favored to win the game, all these things. It's like, it's hard not to have this creeping feeling of, can we hold on in a close game, or can we hold a lead, or can we avoid turning the ball over 5 times, or all these things that have happened to us over and over and over again in recent years. But I think both of our lines are better, and I think it is Shedeur. And Coach Rule said yesterday, with Shedeur and Travis Hunter, we might be facing 2 of the top 5 players in next year's NFL draft. I mean, they absolutely have talent, especially at the skill positions. And the other thing that concerns me is, like, they brought in, I mean, how many transfers did they bring in? 60 again this year. They brought in a bunch of new transfers. I think they did that last year. I think it was over 70 or over 80 last year. People figured out what they were doing and what they were about by 4 or 5 games in. So that's the other thing that makes me a little nervous to play them in game 2 and see what they have up their sleeve in game 2. But here's what I would wrap up with. Sorry, that's a lot of babbling. Here's what I'd wrap up with. I think Husker fans would say these programs are like 2 ships passing in the night. I don't think there's a lot of belief that Coach Prime is going to be in Boulder for 10 years, or that he's really interested in building something for the long term. And I think there's a big belief that Coach Rule is going to be at Nebraska for a long time. He's all about development. He hasn't raided the transfer portal nearly as much. We've really told everybody, if you want to stay, you can stay when he got there. Really about building a foundation for the program, building a culture, as much as that word is overused, being a developmental program. There's a belief that that's taking hold, and that we're going to turn a corner this year. And I think there's a belief that, Coach Prime is all flash, and they're going to have some talent. They're going to have some skill talent, et cetera. but they're going to end up as a 4 or 5 win team again. I think, at least judging by what I see on Twitter, there's a belief in the Colorado fan base. I could be wrong. I don't want to speak for them, but I think there's a belief that like, oh, it's the new era of NIL and the transfer portal, and you have to get with the times. And he's doing it differently than anybody's ever done it before, bringing in all these new transfers every year, et cetera, et cetera. I think that's fine to say. I wouldn't say it's been proven yet. I wouldn't say that model's been proven yet.
Yep.
And I even if we lose to them, which I really hope we don't, I don't think that's a bowl team again this year, Zach. I think that's maybe like a 5-win team again. So here's what I think. I think we're better at both lines of scrimmage. As long as the offense can just not turn the ball over. So even if we punt instead of throw interceptions or fumble, I think I trust our defense to keep us in this game the whole way. Last year, our problem was we kept turning the ball over and we kept giving it to them on the wrong side of the field. Yeah. And, we still ended up making stops or forcing field goals in a lot of those scenarios, but it just ended up being, too much by the end of the game. So I like our chances. I just, as a snake bitten Husker fan, I'm just super anxious and nervous about this one. And Husker fans are all in prove it mode. We're all in there. Husker fans are believing a lot this year, and they're believing a lot in what Matt Rule is doing, but we've done this too many times. Like, we got to see it now.
Yeah. No, and I think that makes a lot of sense because it hasn't been prove it mode for a year. It's prove it mode since Mike Riley.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, so it makes sense as to why. I think the thing that where this could really go off the rails for Nebraska is if Dylan Raiola has a typical freshman type game. And I think what gives me optimism is that I don't think Nebraska has to rely on Raiola to win this game.
Right.
Like, I mean, the game was over by halftime with UTEP.
Yeah.
And they're averaging close to 5 yards a carry. I think that is their recipe for success is strong defense, control the clock, play action pass. And I think you're absolutely right. While I think Colorado can sting you with their playmakers, I think the key to this game, well, a couple keys to this game is obviously the trenches, but you tell Raiola, you do not throw towards Travis Hunter.
Right.
Like, everybody else certainly throw it, go after him. But you do not go after Travis Hunter. Like, just stay away from him. And I don't think they have the defensive skill. I have a theory about the transfer portal, and I appreciate what you're saying, TJ. I think teams that complement their roster with the transfer portal will always do better than teams who load their team up with the transfer portal.
Yeah.
So I think Michigan is actually a really good example of this. Like, Michigan has gotten a lot of transfers, but it's never been the core of their team.
Yeah.
It has always been like they've cherry-picked guys in positions of need. Like, that's what Ohio State did this past year. I think it's what Georgia has done. It's what Nebraska is doing. And that's always the better way to do it because you then have people with growing up in your program.
Yes, right.
And so what Prime is doing, I look at the amount of turnover, and yes, you may not know how to figure them out, but also they have to figure out how to coalesce, which I think is part of their problem on the lines.
That's a good point. Yep.
So I really like Nebraska. I think they cover. I've got 38-24, and I was telling you pre-show, I think Colorado scores late to make it look closer than it is. I think it's a pretty big win for Nebraska.
I love hearing you say that, Zach. I hope that's the case. And I'm with you. I think I want to see us the first couple of drives really pound the rock, and really see that we're establishing the line of scrimmage and that we can hold the ball. But we're gonna have to convert. We're gonna have to get in the end zone, all that. But no, I love hearing that. Again, I think it's gonna be a raucous environment. I'm really excited for Saturday night. So
Yep. Likewise. Likewise.